All right, what's going on, everyone? Christmas coming up here fast. I want to do something for you all, but I'm not creative enough to come up with something that would be good while also being feasible. I actually put a lot of thought into this and keep running into dead ends. If you got any ideas or recommendations, please let me know. Throw it in the comments below. I was thinking of giving away some free stuff like related to the military and military history, but then I have to somehow ask for personal information for that sort of giveaway. And I hate to do that. I mean, on the other end, I'm always very, very skeptical about giving out an email address for some sort of giveaway, just thinking that it's going to be used incorrectly. So I don't want to ask for that lightly. So if you have an idea, please throw it out below. I'd like to figure something out. But in the meantime, I'll thank the channel members. I just opened this up a few weeks ago. So to JD, Stu, PC, Dave, Bert, Jared, Vincent, James, BABFTMC. I'm sorry, man, I don't know how to say that. And Sasha, thank you so much for your support. It really does mean a lot. And with that, we'll get into today's updates. We're going to talk about the Battle of Bakhmut, Zelensky's visit to the front and the risks he ran in doing that, Putin's meeting in Belarus with Lukashenko, and Putin's speech today to his military leaders. All right, starting off with Bakhmut, there actually were some reports over the last couple days of movement in the lines. Some were saying that Ukraine was pushing Russia back in a few areas, but from everything I can tell, these were rather limited, and the big picture is more of a wash than anything. If you look at the two maps here on the screen from Live UA Map, the red portion is territory around Bakhmut, occupied by Ukraine. Map on the left is from December 1st. Map on the right, today, December 21st. These are essentially the same map. Realistically, the minor shifts in Ukraine's favor that I saw on a couple different maps, not here on Live UA Map, they were kind of one-off Twitter products that I didn't feel totally comfortable in sharing. But anyways, the shifts in Ukraine's favor there was pretty similar to the types of little gains that Russia has been making in this general area for a while now. So overall, no real significant territorial change to speak of. I've noticed arguments heating up around whether or not Bakhmut is important, like at all. I don't want to say that either side is necessarily less invested in winning this battle because both are fighting incredibly hard, and it's clearly important to both Ukraine and Russia. I've mentioned before the thought that there might be some pride involved in the Russian side, especially when it comes to Yevgeny Prigozhin and his Wagner group, kind of wanting to show that they're still pushing forward even as the Russian military, retreats from Kherson, and there's these pictures showing up of them digging rather permanent defensive positions all across the front. That Wagner group versus the regular Russian military is a unique dynamic. They work together, but there's also this sort of like internal competition. So with the Wagner group seemingly taking point and doing most of the fighting in Bakhmut, it makes trying to figure out the overall Russian strategy and how Bakhmut ties in a little more convoluted than it might otherwise be. Now, there's no denying that if Russia were to take Bakhmut, it would be a loss for Ukraine and a victory for Russia, right? It would mean Russia breaking through a well-defended portion of the Ukrainian line into a major intersection used to supply much of Ukrainian-held Luhansk, and it potentially opens the door to an attack on Kramatorsk and Slavyansk. I've seen a lot of analysts play down the importance of Bakhmut, and a part of me wonders if some part of that is preparing the information space for its potential fall, as in make it out to not be that important. So if Russia does take the town, they can look back and say, hey, look, we always said it wasn't that big of a deal. Can't entirely rule that out. But I do think there's a chance that Bakhmut is more important to Russia right now than it is to Ukraine. Russia's perceived value is tied to the items mentioned before, mainly location, whereas Ukraine's value might not be as much in denying that opening to Russia, but keeping Russia focused on fighting in an area that's already well defended. Maybe Ukraine sees it in their advantage to have Russia continue to expend resources fighting for Bakhmut, where the Ukrainian forces are already dug in and expecting to fight. It's a possibility. Speaking of Bakhmut, Ukrainian President Zelensky traveled there yesterday, December 20th, to speak with some of his soldiers and present awards. Look, love him, hate him, or feel totally indifferent about this guy, there is value in that visit, and it's the kind of thing you expect from a leader. It's not overly complex. Personally, I think the first part of leadership before anything else matters is just being there, showing up. The more responsibility anybody takes on in any job, the more reasons they have to get tied up and not be able to be out where the rubber meets the road. So doing something like this, a visit to the front line, definitely takes deliberate effort. But how else are you expected to lead a group of individuals if you're not around the people you're responsible for? This kind of stuff does matter. But movement that close to the fighting does bring with it quite a bit of risk. Risk that Russia is able to target his location, and with one strike, Zelensky's gone. There have been a lot of reports critical of Russia's ability to conduct dynamic targeting, essentially the ability to shift assets in real time as a target of opportunity becomes available. We really haven't seen Russia's ability to do that very effectively so far in this war. It's rolling the dice to assume they can't do it at all, but the speed and adaptability of the targeting process does not appear to be a major strength of the Russian military as of today. That certainly reduces the risk that Zelensky is killed in a visit to the front like this, but it doesn't take it to zero. That, though, raises the debate on if Russia would carry out this type of strike at all, given the chance. I think yes. Zelensky's become an icon, not just in Ukraine, but across much of the West. I have to imagine that it would be a significant blow to the war effort if he were to fall. He's built so many personal connections and relationships with Western leaders and developed a method of connecting with the international community that I think would be very hard for someone else to try to replicate in short order. There is more to this type of question, though. It's not always preferred to target a nation's leader in war. For all the assassination attempts made against Hitler in World War II, there have been some arguments post-war that Hitler was the best Allied general, and it's kind of mocking, of course, but the idea was that he was not good at dictating the course of the war. So as he began to take over more and more of the military decisions from his generals, that actually helped the Allies to win the war sooner. So if you think an opposing leader is weak or making bad decisions, there is an argument, technically, to keep him or her in power rather than try to take him out. For another example, we can look at Russia today. The debate I've often heard is that should Putin leave power for whatever reason, by whatever means, it's a bit of a gamble on who would replace him. It's possible, for instance, that his successor could be more aggressive towards Ukraine, NATO, and the rest of the West. So it's no guarantee that his removal ends or even slows the war. Of course, I have no idea what the Kremlin's calculations are when it comes to targeting Zelensky right now. Just wanted to throw this concept out there that, targeting the head of state isn't always priority number one in the middle of war. Speaking of Zelensky, reports now from both the United States and Ukraine that he is en route as we record at 11 a.m. on December 21st from Ukraine to Washington, D.C., where he's set to address Congress. I'm sure that'll be televised, so I'll see if I can find that link or the time when that'll be put out and post it in the video description here. Putin gave a speech of his own today when he met with senior defense officials from all across the Russian military. This comes just a few days after Putin, along with his foreign minister Lavrov and defense minister Shoigu, traveled for talks in Belarus. The outcome from Belarus wasn't really anything significant. I mean, 9 times out of 10, anytime leaders of different countries meet, it's always built up as something really big, and then the talking points end up being really super bland and kind of generic. That's essentially what happened here. Putin and Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, really didn't get into anything, publicly at least, around the war in Ukraine. It was much more about how they're continuing to grow together and their alliance is strong, stuff like that. There is the possibility that the visit was aimed at drawing Belarus into the war alongside Russia, and that Lukashenko refused to do that in some way, which is why there was so little public talk about the war in Ukraine. That's possible. I mean, you have to think that there were some pretty serious topics discussed for these 3 Russian leaders to travel for in-person talks, but nothing definitive on that front at the end of the day. That possibility is really just speculation. When it comes to Putin's speech today, I'm still waiting on the full transcript to come out, but there are a few points worth mentioning. There seemed to be a lot of talk recognizing problems they faced during the mobilization process. This isn't the first time it's been mentioned by Russian leadership. It's hard to say how much of these issues have been resolved or how they've changed over time. From day one, there have been official Russian channels and outlets showing successful training and the mobilization going well, right alongside reports from not official Russian channels of subpar conditions, lack of equipment, stuff like that. Both are continuing today. You can still find kind of reports of the positive and negative today. But overall, I think I've seen fewer critical reports recently. I don't have any data or hard facts to point to there, more of just like a gut feeling. It seems like those pretty crazy videos of the mobilization going very, very poorly have died down a little bit, at least for now. In that same session, Russian Defense Minister Shoigu made some proposed changes to the age of military service and the overall size of the Russian military. But I want to wait to see the actual wording and context of some of that before really commenting. As I'm recording this, I've only seen summaries and snippets from that speech, so I don't want to misrepresent how or what some of those announcements were. I'll get into that probably in the next video, and we'll add the transcript as soon as I see it to the video description here, community tab, and other places so you can check it out if interested. All right, that's all I got for now. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I'll see y'all next time.